Welcome, everyone, to the much-anticipated webinar starring iQCloud. All 10,000 of you here today are to learn about how to get 100% visibility of your IT estate 100% of the time across both your on- and off-prem services. Next. Today, you will get an introduction to iQuake, a deep dive into iQCloud, and a demo with a little time at the end for Q&A. Your presenters today are Brent Brightwell, Head of Marketing, and Jihad El-Assad, our Product Leader. I'm Brent, and I've known Jay about 12 years, starting back at BMC, where we led the Atrium Discovery, Dependency Mapping, CMDB, Reporting Analytics, and more. And we've had several fun adventures since then, Jay. Hey, tell them about the time we caught that wild monkey. Oh, never mind. Next. So let's talk about the real important story here, which is iQuake. iQuake was founded in 2002, but really got traction the last few years. We brought in this beautiful leadership team that helped the company transform and expand into the large enterprise space with some great service providers. Now at the top here, looking at our customers, you see we only take one customer per year. So you might be that lucky one of you, 20,000 here today. We select if you qualify. But seriously, we have hundreds of happy customers globally, and these are just some of our favorites. Next. Hey, so that you know that we know important people and we have impressive quotes. Take a look at these. But seriously, we see that our market is being impacted by digital, especially we're moving off-site to the cloud. And the fear and lack of confidence senior leadership has in our ability to successfully transform to meet the needs of our customers. Next. And there's a very good reason to be a scaredy bird. Their key business services are comprised of very complex applications where the slightest change could cost a fortune to their business. And if problems occur, finding the right root cause is lengthy. And those of us responsible for keeping up with everything in the IT estate know that doing it manually is impossible. So we must automate this as much as possible. Next. Now, I wouldn't sound very smart unless I could quote a smarter person. So according to Isaac Sacolick, in his 2017 book, Driving Digital, which I've obviously read many times, quote, digitally transformed businesses typically develop an ecosystem that blur the lines between supply chain, partner, customer, crowd, and employee, and both strategy and execution are heavily influenced by this ecosystem, end quote. So this blurring involves a lot of different complex technologies. So the idea was that if companies have to bring together and properly manage these new technologies, it's no easy task. That's where hybrid cloud management becomes the critical factor. Managing both cloud and non-cloud through the same pane of glass. iQCloud is that one smart pane of glass companies need. So we can all agree cloud is the epicenter of this disruption, and managing that hybrid cloud environment is the execution vehicle. That is why we're happy to announce our new product, iQCloud, which supports hybrid cloud management that enables digital transformation. Next. So let me turn all 50,000 of you over to Jihad, who can tell you more about this new product. Take it, Jihad.
Thank you, Brent, and welcome to the introduction of iQCloud. So today, what I'm going to do is tell you what is iQCloud, just to give you a quick brief on what we do. So it is a cloud-based solution, and what we do, we collect a lot of information. We're fully agentless. We collect a lot of information. So what we do is continuously discover your infrastructure. We can do it top-down or bottom-up. We prefer to be top-down because we are very service-centric. So we collect all these information, and then we process all the information through some rule-based engine, and then we provide you with some mapping of all your services within your data center. So anything that you're managing in your data center will be from the service perspective as opposed to the infrastructure, unlike legacy products out there. Then what we do is, because we are a lifecycle management, application lifecycle management, what we do, we don't stop at the mapping. What we do, we also try to track all the configuration, because we understand how important it is to know all the changes, detailed changes that happen at the application level. After all, most of the outages are due to either a hardware problem or somebody made a change, and this is what we're good at. And then the last piece is really what we do is we collect also metrics, performance metrics, so that we enable you to correlate problems, application problems, to changes that happen within the infrastructure. So all the stuff can be used for if you're running into IT initiative, projects such as data center transformation, consolidation, or migration to the cloud. You are able to do it from the application perspective. Other products will enable you to migrate to the cloud or do transformation based on a workload or based on a server per server basis. What we're doing is we're giving you this capability of doing it from the application perspective. Or if you have a hybrid initiative, or if you have a hybrid cloud, you're running across heterogeneous environment, that's a perfect solution for you to be able to see all your application running across all the different infrastructure, and you can manage these. And the other thing is really, if you have CMDB initiative, or you already have CMDB, you need to populate and keep it up to date and operate and manage all your services. This is a perfect fit for your service operation management. So the benefit is, again, we've talked about, based on what we do within our solution, we've talked about being able to migrate the infrastructure faster and safer. Why safer and faster? Because you're doing it at the application level and you're not doing it server by server. So you understand exactly what your application are, and then you're doing them based on these applications. So you can do the proper planning when you start these initiatives. Again, because we provide you with the dependency mapping of your services, you can understand what is the impact of a change. If you have a problem, you can recover much faster. So this will enable you to reduce costs of your operation as well. If you're running servers, we can detect all the servers that are not associated to applications. So this will enable you to reduce the cost of the operation. Shadow IT, we're talking about rogue servers and shadow IT. In case that some of your users start spinning up servers in the cloud, and then without your knowledge, so you can immediately detect these and be able to remedy the situation. We've talked about the true impact. So that's really the solution. Will enable you to run efficiently, take informed decisions when you're doing migration, and run better your operation and reduce the costs. So the architecture itself, we've talked about, it is an agentless technology, unlike many other vendors where it requires some agents sitting on every server. So, and then of course, as we are in the cloud, and we're trying to discover your infrastructure, so you're going to need to have some kind of presence or some kind of collector sitting within your environment. And this collector, we're calling it the virtual appliance, is nothing but a virtual machine that you loaded with our image, and then what it does, it collects data and send these data securely back to the cloud. And all the performance, all the work, all the analytics is done in the cloud, at the cloud level. And in order to access the data, either you can use any browser, you can use the browser to access the application native, or else if you have integration with vendors such as CMDB or ITOM or what have you, so you can access these through these vendors. You can access the data through these vendors. Again, I emphasize it is service-centric because every other vendors that I've seen out there, except maybe for one, they do the bottom-up approach, so they start from the infrastructure up. When we have both approach, you can do the infrastructure bubbling up, so bottom-up, or you can do it top-down, but preference is top-down because you want to understand every application and you want to manage every application separately. We are single architecture, so everything is very homogeneous architecture, single UI, single architecture, single database. Again, we support hybrid environment, physical, virtual cloud. We have all these analytics reporting that will provide you all the information to make the informed decisions about your initiative and project. We're agentless technology. It's very extensible and scalable in the sense that we are also opening it up to the community so that the community is able to extend the capability of our platform by adding more fingerprints and functionality. And we are CMDB ready. So we expose our data, we have REST API, and we have capabilities If you want to integrate with different CMDB vendor, that you can do it at your own pace. We have some out of the box already done, but if you have something that we don't support, it's very easy to integrate it. With that thought, I'm going to move on to the demo, and then of course, we're going to leave a section at the end for Q&A. So at this time, we're going to continue on with our presentation, and then we'll leave some time for the Q&A at the end. So let me move on to the demo. So here, I'm going to log into our platform, I'm going to use some account called Obscope, and I will be logging in. And I'm going to basically show you, for instance, how would you manage a migration. Let's assume you're taking an application from the cloud, you have an on-prem application, taking it from an on-prem setup into the cloud, whether it's AWS or what have you. But before you do any of the stuff, just let me explain to you that it's very, very simple to get the result using our platform. So really, within 1 hour, you should be able to be up and running, set up, running, have data, and have already application in place that you can already start using. But to give you an idea, so here's setting. The setting is the first thing you want to set up an appliance which is a collector. So here I have one that is green, so meaning it's up and running, ready to, waiting to collect data and send it back to the cloud. If you need to add another appliance, very, very easy. All you have to do is basically download it from here, download the image from here, and then create new appliance license. You put the license, you copy paste, you generate the key, and then you copy paste the key into the appliance UI that you're going to be logging in locally within your environment. Once this is done, you're going to have another entry here, and this entry will have the green color, meaning it has a heartbeat, it's connected, and it's ready to start receiving data. The next step is really to set up the scan job, or we call them the discovery. So you could either use the wizard, so it will guide you through every step-by-step how you put the information. But if you're familiar with the system, let's take an example. And we have here one job that is running as we speak. But let's take an example. So if I take this job, which has a schedule, which is running on schedule. So what I see here, the first thing is the info is the name of the job, some description. But this is an important information here. As I mentioned, we can do what we call the sequential discovery, which is the bottom up. So start from the infrastructure up to the application, or we can do the application, so downstream or top down, start from one seed IP address. Or you can do the neighborhood, which is a hybrid approach between the sequential and the application. Meaning, give you an example, if you have a database server and you want to understand all the applications that are using that database server, so you may start from that point, and then what it does, it's going to spiral out to all the applications, discover all the applications that are using that database server. So as you can see, we have different methods, unlike other vendors where you've seen most of them are the bottom up. And if you see anything that is top down, I know of one vendor I'm not going to mention, but they have, it's a two different solutions, separate solution that you have to buy. So the next piece of information, of course, the scope is what are you trying to discover? What is it's a subnet, range of IPs, etc. If you want to exclude certain IP addresses, the key chains, you can store them in the cloud or on-prem, depending on your security practices. And the options are interesting. If you check this box here, we've talked about configuration change, tracking configuration changes. So once you check this box, on the first discovery, we're going to baseline your infrastructure. So meaning we're going to baseline everything that we're discovering so that subsequent discovery will show you all the changes that happen in your infrastructure. And we'll see in the demo how this looks. And if you enable this feature here, we're going to start collecting performance metric for all your application. And then, of course, you schedule and you start running the job. So now that we've done all the work, we've done the setting, we've done the discovery job, and we start discovering, let's take a look at the data, start exploring some of the data. So I'm going to go to one application here. I'm going to take a look at some applications. So I have a bunch of applications, and then here I see how many servers are supporting these applications. So for instance, let me take an example of one application that is on-prem. And of course, as I mentioned, we provide you with a holistic view of your applications. So if I look at the dependency map shows you the application with all the technology that support this application, where they're hosted. We can go all the way to the guest host relationship, the ESX server, all the way down to the network layer and then the storage. So as you can see, this is a typical application, on-prem type of application in a physical data center that shows you the holistic view of that application. And this dependency mapping view actually served for two use cases. One is to understand what is the impact of making a change. So for instance here, if I'm trying to make a change to, let's take an example, to my Cassandra server, let's assume this server. So I can see that we have a cluster of Cassandra nodes. And in this case, the impact might be minimal. But if I try to make a change to, let's say, MySQL database server, then it is one server. So it's a single point of failure, meaning that if you make a change without proper planning, without notifying users, you may bring down the whole system down. So this is one example. Let me take an example of an application that I'm trying to migrate to the cloud, and I'm managing it all the way with the changes and metrics. So let me go back to applications. So I'm going to take this example here. It's an online reservation system, and which is basically booking hotel rooms online. So as you can see, this online reservation system, I have all these software components that support this application, and they're hosted on these VMs. Now, if I want to migrate this application, that's a perfect view. Why? Because I know exactly what this application is, all the components that support this application, and where they're hosted. So it's very easy to take this whole thing as one project. I mean, move this whole thing into the cloud rather than using other software or other vendors, legacy vendors, where they're going to show you every hardware or every server and how they're communicating with each other. So this is really a great view of a dependency. But now, sometimes this is not enough to migrate to the cloud. You want to understand also how these things are communicating, maybe with external system that you haven't discovered. So we can take a look at communication view, which is a view of that application. And let me extend the view to show you everything that is outside this application. So I'm going to fix the layout. And here I'm going to move it. Okay. So here what you see, this application, of course, there are more nodes on this. But let me highlight this application, just the one that we're talking about, the online reservation system. So what you see here highlighted in purple is really the component of this application or this service, which is the online reservation system. And everything that is not highlighted is some part of either other application or somebody who's communicating with this application. So let's take a look. For instance, here I see a bunch of servers communicating with one node. So let's zoom in a little bit. And I can see here all these IP addresses of servers. They're public IP addresses. So obviously, these are servers that are coming from the outside. And then here they're communicating, connecting to my HA proxy, which is a load balancer. So just from looking at this looks like all these, at the time of the discovery, these looks like all client IP addresses connecting to my application from the outside and using the applications. So meaning that if I need to migrate this application, I won't have to worry about these because I'm going to have some kind of maintenance windows. I'm going to notify my user, etc. So that won't be a problem. But let's take a look maybe at other servers. So here I see two other servers. If I zoom in, so these are internal IP addresses. I don't know honestly what they are, but somebody within the IT should be able to know. But the idea behind it is, before you migrate, you want to understand, you want to make sure that you know exactly what's going on, what's communicating with this application before you make the actual migration. So we have a customer, for instance, when they use this view here, they were looking at their production system, and they saw that it's communicating to two servers that are part of the QA environment. And this should not have been something that that shouldn't been the norm. So what they've done is, using this layout, they were able to detect this anomaly and remediate the situation. So we have different views that will provide you with the same information, but different layouts. So for instance, this will provide you with the same similar information, where you can see all the servers here communicating, how they communicate with each other. So if you have, and then it's very easy, because once you hover, you'll see even more information than what I provided you in the previous view. So here I can see, for instance, on this one, I can look at all the communication. We have 119 communication. We have 55 unresolved IP, and so forth. So you can get a lot of information using this view as well. So here, so far, what we've talked about is the discovery, collecting the information. We've talked about the dependency map, which serves as the use case for understanding the impact of a change, or if you have a problem, you can immediately drill down into some of the components that support this application, or if you want to migrate, you can use it. The communication view is another layer, which shows you how the application communicates. Now, we've talked about change. We enabled change history on this one. So now what we need to do is, since we're managing this application, what we're looking here is at a grid that shows you all the changes that happen to this application for this period of time that I've highlighted here. So here, this is the application, and this is on a daily basis, all the changes. So for instance, if I go to on 9/20, which is September 20, if I click on it, I can see that for this application, there has been 7 servers that's been changed. And we know that this application, there are 14 servers. So 7 out of these 14 servers, there has been some changes. So let's take a look at these changes. We can see here, for instance, a configuration file change and some other changes on the disk. So let's take a look at the configuration file here. And I can drill down and see exactly the differences. So here, what I see is highlighted in yellow where the change happened for this configuration file. So this is the base version of the configuration file, as you can see. And I can see this value changing from 40,000 to 30,000. So obviously, somebody had made a change, and that this is why this was triggered. And we can look at other changes as well. For instance, we're looking at a command change, the output of the command. And here I can see that the commit log for that disk space for my Cassandra, one of my Cassandra nodes, has changed from 1.014 megabyte to 10,021 megabyte. So as you can see, this is very powerful, because this is, once we integrate with your ITSM of reference, you should be able to associate any of these changes to a request, to an open change request. Therefore, you'll be able to tie the two, consolidate, and you find out what is your actual state of your environment. And if you don't have any change requests associated, means that somebody has gone outside the process and made a change to your system or to one of your configuration files. But we provide template for the changes, so that out of the box, we keep track of changes that happens on your hardware. For instance, the memory changes, CPU, disk, what have you. All these are out of the box. By default, we track these. Now, if you want to track configuration changes, you want to track output of a command, then this is something, it's very easy. You can extend the system, and this is when I've talked in my presentation that we're enabling this to the community, so that if you have a subject matter expert coming in aboard, and then he's expert in, let's say, an SAP system, what we can do is he can write the extend the catalog, what we call the catalog, so that any changes that are important to your SAP environment are detected throughout the system. So this is, again, the changes. Now, the last part that we want to talk about is the metrics. So this is where we collect data about your application for all the resources that support this application. Let's take a look at the last 30 days here. So we can see the last 30 days for this application. So these are all the servers that support this application. We're looking at the CPU usage, but we collect other metrics. We collect memory, we collect disk, what have you, all these things. And then we have two different views for these collections. So we have what we call the heat map view, or we have the line. Now on the line here, I can see that during that period of time, there has been one spike, one CPU that has spiked up and back down. So let's take a look of what are the changes that happened during that period of time. So if I drill down here and choose this option, and what I'm going to see on the top, all the changes, and obviously I see a couple changes here on that day, which could be weird. And I think, there is definitely markdown. Let me take a look at it from the heat map. I can see probably better where the changes happen. And I can see definitely that a change happened here on that server and this server is the SDB server. So definitely on this period, there has been a change here and a change here. So this is possibly the change that could have triggered this spike in the CPU and the change maybe that lowered down. And so now let's drill down even further into that CPU. So this is prod SDB. I'm going to double click on it. And here I'm going to start looking into the details of that server. So I can see all the metrics for that server. I'm going to look at the change history. And I can see actually two changes happen here, right there on 19 and 21. Let's take a look at these changes. And here you go. We got some configuration change that happened. So obviously it is the change that triggered that spike. And then I can drill down even further to find out all the information about this server. I can look at all the TCP UDP connections. We can have other information such as connections, neighbors view, etc. I can look at all the processes that are running during that discovery for that server. So as you can see, we collect, again, a lot of information that we're processing through our analytics engine. And I can look at, for instance, what this server, how is it communicating to neighbor servers? So I can see this SDB communicating mostly with an application server and an insertion. We call it, this is an insertion server for that application. And I can look at the dependency view, the upstream dependency view. So this server supports the MySQL database server, which support the online reservation product. And then I can look what are the resources that run on that server. So you can look at the MAC address, the network ports, this information, file system, what have you. And then, this gives me the information about that server. So obviously this is a VMware machine. It runs Ubuntu. It has 2 gigs of memory and then 2 cores. So as you can see, I can go upstream from, I started downstream from the application. And here what I've been doing is going upstream from that server up, finding out all the information. Now this is typically, so if I want to do a migration again, I'm able to basically start from one application, understand all the dependency for that application, understand the communication, see all the changes that happen on a day-to-day, and then start looking at metrics. So the metric can also be used from a capacity perspective, where you see memory, how the memory is trending, how the CPU are trending, and network. So this is good because once you do the migration, you'll be able to plan the proper capacity. Well, if it's underutilized, then you may need to consolidate some of the servers. But if it's overutilized, then you may need to add additional workloads. So I can go now to the dashboard. Dashboard will provide you some kind of aggregated information. So here I can see the tree map of all my application, and this is my what you see. As you can see, there has been 14 servers. This is the online reservation system that is supported by 14 servers, and today there has been 6 changes. I can see all my servers by OS type, by importance, application importance, production, UAT, testing, etc. And I can look at my daily utilization. So this is a small environment, so obviously has 14 servers here. But if you have a big data center and you have workloads all over, it's very easy to see on a day-to-day how your CPU usage and memory utilization trending. So here I don't have much changes, so it's a stable environment. And of course, there are other reports that you can look at that we provide as well. Changes and inventory, etc. What have you. Let me show you a quick example of an application that is, once you migrate it to the cloud, I'll show you an application that's running in the cloud, which is this one. It's running, as you can see, this is an icon showing these are cloud instances. These are Amazon instances. And then even we see that we have a container and a Docker running on this, that are being used for that application as well. So as you can see, we support hybrid environment. We support a lot of technologies, microservices, containers, and then of course we can provide you with a holistic view of your application all the way from the, all the software components all the way to the network layer and storage. So that is kind of what I would like to show. I mean, there's many more, but I don't want to drill down to. Just wanted to give you an introduction about the solution that we provide. So let me go back to the presentation. So just again to reiterate, so our differentiator are, again, we are service centric. And I keep saying that because definitely this is a big differentiator. Most of the competitor, or I would say 99% of the competitor, use the approach where you start from the infrastructure upstream, and we'll provide you with both approach. It is a single architecture, so really for you, first of all, it's cloud-based, so you don't need to set up anything on your environment. All you have to do is have access to the account and set up these virtual appliances or collectors so that, once these set up, you never touch these. They're automatically updated and so forth. We provide support for hybrid environments, cloud, physical, virtual, and cloud. As you can see, the analytics, everything that you've seen that I showed you, all these graphs, all these maps that I showed you, they're all out of the box. There is no manual work at all. I mean, everything is automatically done. We are extensible, scalable. I didn't drill down into how you can scale, extend the catalog, but this could be a subject for a deeper dive into the application. And again, as I mentioned, it's automatic discovery and mapping, so there is no manual intervention. We provide you with drift because it is very important to understand if you have an outage, what has changed. That's the first thing you want to know when you have an outage. What are the changes that happened in the previous days? And then even, to be able to, if you have a CMDB and then you have a change management system, the change management system, this is what you want your environment to be, but our discovery will give you the actual. So it's actual versus desired. So you're able to compare the actual versus desired. And then we are community driven. We'll provide a community so that you can extend, community can extend and quickly enable certain functionality that we even don't have. And then it is CMDB enabled. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Brent. And if you have any questions, Brent.
Yeah, any CMDB, awesome. All right, Jay, great demo. We greatly appreciate you showing that to us. And if you guys want to see a demo yourself, right, and have a personalized demo focusing on the use cases that are most important to you, please go to www.iQA.com/demo. We thank you for your time today. We greatly appreciate you checking out iQCloud. From Brent and Jay, we're going to sign off. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.